It's funny how things have turned full circle. I think the show was originally intended to try to convert young people into more liberal believers and to make Archie look like a bigot. But here we are 50 years later, and Archie looks smarter than ever, and Meathead looks dumber than ever. Good morning, and welcome to a special issue of the Clarion Call, Reactions and Opinions. Like most of the country, I was greatly shocked by the news of the death of actor Rob Reiner in Hollywood the other day, and his wife apparently murdered by their own son with a knife. I can't think of a more horrible way to go. I realized that Mr. Reiner's political views were diametrically opposed to my own. He had a very severe case of Trump derangement. But I don't celebrate his death in any way. For me, like most older Americans, we first met Rob when he played Meathead in the sitcom All in the Family, which was the number one show in America for 6 years, from 1971 to 76. And it was must-watch TV, hilarious TV, a show that probably could not even be shown today because it would be considered politically incorrect. And the main engine of that fun and laughter was the conflict between Rob's character, Meathead, and his father-in-law, Archie Bunker, played by Carol O'Connor, who was reactionary in many ways and had old-fashioned views. And Meathead represented the younger generation, the hippie, as you can see here. This episode is called Mike Meets Archie. It was a flashback episode. It wasn't the first episode, but it was in the second year. But you can see Rob is dressed here with a tie-dye shirt, and he has long hair and a beard. And he also had conventional liberal views, thought his father-in-law was a total bigot. I'm going to play the theme song, react to that. As I had thought about doing it actually a number of months ago, but then with current events, I thought, well, now's the time. And I discovered in my research that there was actually a second verse to the song that most of us have probably never heard. We're familiar with the first verse, which was introduced to the show every night, but most people have never heard that second verse. So I put together a lyric video of the entire song, and then I put it over this scene from Mike Meets Archie. There's no dialogue that's audible because I've replaced it with the soundtrack, but if you're familiar with the show, you don't really need the soundtrack because you can kind of tell by the facial expressions what's going on in this clash of generations.
Boy, the way Glenn Miller played. Guys like me, we had it made. Those were the days. Didn't need no welfare state.
Everybody moves weight.
Gee, I roll us out and great. Those were the days.
That dumb smile was natural with him. If you look at even recent pictures and throughout his life, you saw that big smile on his face. Again, didn't agree with a lot of his political views, but a very likable fellow. And of course, he later did very well as a director. And I've heard estimates that his net worth, because he owns Castle Rock Films, that his net worth is somewhere close to $1 billion. But that doesn't protect you from problems in the world, and apparently his son had more than his share of problems, was in rehab dozens of times, was homeless, and unfortunately, as it's easy to understand, apparently he may have been allowed to live back at home with mom and dad, and that was a fatal mistake.
Girls were girls and men were men. Mister, we could use a man like David Hoover again.
That line, you knew where you stood then. Girls were girls and men were men. Boy, does that ring a lot differently today. Back then it was fairly innocent, and it was a kind of cutting about the hippies wearing long hair that maybe you couldn't tell a man from a woman because the men's hair was getting longer. Today it's a whole different world, isn't it? Now we really do have men who think they're women and women who think they're men. I'm not sure we're any better for that.
$50 paid the rent. freaks were in a circus tent. Those were the days.
Freaks, of course, was another word for hippies. In fact, Jimi Hendrix had a famous song on when he said he was going to let his freak flag fly. Comic where we had the Furry Freak Brothers. So freak was a pejorative perhaps, but a lot of people, hippies in that time, self-identified as a freak. But today, I don't think there's any question that we have some real freaky people out there. People that walk around with blue hair and jewelry in their faces and tattoos. Nothing like the innocent freaks we had back in the 60s who were all about peace and love. Nowadays, they're more likely to be involved in Antifa and seeing if we can't destroy the world. Now, I should also mention, obviously, there was two other main characters. Edith Bunker, the wife here, played by Jean Stapleton. She's also singing along with Carol O'Connor in this particular version of the song. But she was kind of the bumbling wife. She played it perfectly because she always pretended that she was dumb, but then somehow she always managed to say the right thing and outsmart Archie in the end. And then Sally Struthers, who played Meatball's wife, she also played it kind of dumb, but she was such a nice girl and she just wanted everyone to get along. And in this scene here, she's like trying to get the two to shake hands and be friends. And well, good luck with that. The Dodgers were in Brooklyn originally, and this show is based in New York City. They're reminiscing about the good old days when you can go to Brooklyn and watch the Dodgers. Of course, the Dodgers moved to LA, I think, around 1958. Said you could have a great time at the ballpark and it cost you under a fin. Well, a fin was $5. Now, $5 back in 1970 is about $50 today. But I don't even think you could go to a ballpark and have a ticket and have anything to eat for less than $50 today. With all the new stadiums they've built, they've jacked up the prices. And last time I was there, the concessions were crazy. I mean, a glass of beer would be about $15. So there it is. I'll put a link to the actual episode, Mike Meets Archie, if you want to see it. It's hysterical. It's funny how things have turned full circle. I think the show was originally intended to try to convert young people into more liberal believers and to make Archie look like a bigot. But here we are 50 years later, and Archie looks smarter than ever, and Meathead looks dumber than ever. But that doesn't mean that the guy who played Meathead deserved to die. It's a horrible thing that happened. I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more details about it. I prefer to remember Rob as he looked right here as a young man when he brought us a lot of laughter.